Hello there, I'm Black Bright News, and what can I say this morning? Front of the Metro, Trump's 1 billion battle with corrupt BBC. Now, you either love Trump or you don't. Now, but what I found fascinating with this particular article is that what Trump does is teach responsibility. He teaches accountability. And as much as you might not like him, or some people may not like him, he's very careful with his words, extremely cautious with his words. And why is that? Because he lives in a society or a culture of suing. In the UK, we don't sue. It's not really a suing, well, it's not a suing culture. Recently, you might have your little taking people to court and Crown Court and People's Court. Well, not People's Court, but civil courts and stuff like that. But it's not large amounts. It's not real suing. Now, with Donald Trump, this is real suing. And it does appear, although we're not sure, that he might have a case. Now, it looks as though the BBC, on a Panorama show, doctored his speech. Instead of saying what he said, they glamorized it or made it look as though he was an antagonist, almost. So, the difference between walk with them to fight like hell and peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, two different things. The interpretation is subjective, depending on what perspective you're looking at it from. Now, with Donald Trump, you need to say exactly what he says, but what he says exactly doesn't have a punch. It doesn't have fire. It's not sensationalism. Like when he says, terrible, terrible mayor. Now, if he said the mayor was a bastard, he'd be in trouble. But he doesn't say the wrong things usually. He's very, very cautious. And so it's going to be very interesting. The Director General has left. Did he walk out? Director General and Head of News, they've both left their jobs, which means they probably know. Apparently it was brought to their attention and nobody did anything about it. And it just shows you, we speak frivolously. A lot of the time we speak frivolously. But in the Bible it says the sword is in the tongue. The tongue can destroy or it can uplift. And not many of us take notice of that phrase. Not many of us guard what we say. And yet what we say often brings death. Even when you think about children bullying others in school, it's what they say that causes pain and anguish and sometimes causes them to kill or be killed. And we need to be responsible with our mouths. This is what this is teaching me. Need to be responsible with our mouths. It's very easy to make something sound better than what it actually is. Very easy, but there's a part where you actually switch the truth, which is where it gets dangerous. It becomes disinformation. And it's dangerous. Misinformation is a mistake. Disinformation is deliberate. So when we speak, regardless of who we speak to, it has to be the truth. Especially as journalists, you have a responsibility of reporting the truth. I tell you something, people ain't going to touch Trump in the future with a barge pole. They're going to be so skeptical on what he says and how they report news regarding him. And that's a good thing. But that shouldn't just be Trump that they do that to. It should be every single person they are reporting on. Be responsible. It's not about omitting the truth, what they call lies by omission. They do that too. They can fabricate things, but often there are no repercussions. People just take it on the chin. If I see some news I'm not sure of, I'll just go to another source or two other sources and check it out. And even then, sometimes, when you want to send a message, how do you send that message so it's honest and yet not boring? Because the news journalists, they're struggling with making their papers and keeping their readership. Newspapers, people hardly buy them anymore, so they're more expensive. And people can get news online. They can get news by third-party means. It might not actually be accurate, but as long as people see the pictures, they make their own interpretation instead of relying on the news to interpret it for them. But it is a big responsibility. And it's no fun being a newscaster or newsreader or journalist. Me and my Korean movies, I often watch the journalists who are battling for news, trying to get there first, trying to get the tips, paying for tips, meeting people, putting themselves in dangerous situations so they can be the first one to report the news so that they can get some accolade at work. But when that reporting becomes fabricated or sensationalized and distorted, and to the point where it's actually saying something that somebody didn't say, that is where you tread on dangerous ground. So let me just read this a little bit. Trump's $1 billion battle with corrupt BBC. Donald Trump says he will sue the BBC for $1 billion over a doctored speech of flagship show Panorama, a scandal that led to its Director General and head of news quitting. Now, what he's saying also is that all they've got to do is apologise, retract the statement, pay a redress, or he's going to sue them heavily. So we'll have to watch this space. But let me continue. 2 parts of the US leader's address to followers before the 2021 Capitol Hill riots were edited, so he appeared to tell them he would walk with them to fight like hell in a documentary last year. The quotes were at least an hour apart, and in fact, he told them to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Independent advisor Michael Prescott was tasked by the BBC with investigating impartiality, for his report was leaked amid claims bosses failed to act on it. On Sunday, as pressure grew over the revelations, Director General Tim Davie and News Chief Executive Deborah Tunis said they will step down. President Trump called Britain's publicly funded broadcasters a terrible thing for democracy and said it corrupts journalists